I'm expecting some results here now. You notice she's hiding behind and laughing, going, oh my God. So yeah, this is the great Zambezi River, which flows from the Kariba Dam wall. So Kariba it isn't now, but it was the largest man-made dam in the world. Above us, upstream, towards the west, is Chirundu town, and the bridge, which is a main border post through to Zambia. So there's a lot of trading routes going through there with trucks. A lot of trucks pass through every day. Now, how that affects us is obviously it's a fairly porous border, so it's easy to smuggle weapons and contraband in and out of the country. So it is a big issue for us and the management thereof. There is law enforcement. How active they are is debatable. How corrupt they are is debatable. It's an issue. So it does make our job quite difficult. We do have the powers to set up roadblocks, to do so with the police. But again, with the flow of traffic, they can hinder us by saying you're now causing traffic jams, slowing down the borders. It's now affecting the economy. So there's always an argument to and against. So it is an issue. On the Zambian side, there's a large population of people, fishermen. Majority are legal, they have permits. And then obviously there are some illegal. On the Zimbabwean side, we don't have that. It's broken into concessions, all the way down to monopoles. The wildlife, we have everything here apart from the rhino, so we don't have the big five.
There's no giraffe.
And there's no giraffe, obviously, because of the fauna and fauna is incorrect for them. But yeah, so that's what's missing for us is the rhino. So paying customers, when they come from abroad, they want to see the big five. It's all about the big five, and to be able to see it within a short period of time. And that's where we can say we're lacking, but we used to have that in abundance. Well, because of the increase in poaching, they decided when it was getting out of control to move them out of the area, so they moved them to different parts of the country. I think it was back in the mid-70s, so it just before the end of the war and up to the 80s. But the gentleman you'll meet tonight, Pete Clements, he was part of that process, so he can to go into greater detail. I was but a small child, so I can still remember them doing it, and thank God they did, because otherwise we would have absolutely none left. For the locals, they rely on the Zimbabwean side. When I talk about the Zimbabweans, they rely at the border post on the transport, the trafficking, the lorries moving produce back and forth. Agriculture is not really an option, because we have tsetse fly, which brings about sleeping sickness, which is harmful for cattle. So the raising of cattle is very difficult in this area, although you will see it growing in numbers on the Zambian side, because they have their tsetse fly control in a better position than we do. Okay, so it's not an agricultural area. Ideally, they do grow bananas, but with this heat, okay, we have an abundance of water, but the temperatures are high. Okay, and the soil quality is not great. So it's for wildlife. The heat, everything lends itself towards wildlife. During the Rhodesian days, there was the concessions some of them were hunting areas, but it was very heavily controlled. And so the way it would work is that concessions were broken down. National parks would go in and they'd say, okay, we've got excess bull elephants or excess buffalo and etc. And then they would allow so many to be shot, and that money would then go back into national parks for the preservation of the remaining animals. So it supported itself through that way, but it was controlled and it was managed, and poaching was almost at zero. It was very minimal poaching. So now that the poaching has got out of control, obviously, because now it's very difficult to monitor how much game is actually out there. Doing game counts is not as easy as what people think. They do it from the air, which Doug and I have done in the reef area, but when you go on the ground, it shows you a different picture. So it's very difficult to regulate, unless you've got the poaching side under control. Once you've got the poaching side under control, and you can see that the herds of animal are expanding, and you've got an old bull elephant who's probably got 3 months to live, then this is when they used to allow professional hunters to come in and pay a lot of money, and majority went back into national parks, which went to conservation of the remaining game and paid for the national parks people to work in the areas and protect them. So it was a protected area in that way. Unfortunately, due to difficult political times, there's a total breakdown in the system there. I wouldn't say there's a relationship. There is questions about the control of the hunting, where before you would always have to, and you still do, have to go with the national parks ranger with you. They used to be called scouts in those days, now they're called rangers, it's the same thing. And they would have to make sure that you complied with the law, i.e. if you wounded an animal, you paid for it regardless. So you couldn't then carry on until you shot a buffalo. There's concerns now that that's no longer taking place, with bribery and corruption being so rife. They're allowing them to continue and wound 3, 4, 5, 6 buffalo before they actually get the trophy. So this is also putting extra pressure where it's not necessary. Ordinarily, a lot of donors have come in to assist with anti-poaching, with aid work, etc., etc. And Rolf's situation is different. He's not a donor. He's actually part of the whole process. So, yes, his financial help has been great, but he's more instrumental in the day-to-day running of the operations. So he's taken a business approach and put it into a non-profit organization, anti-poaching project, to make it successful. So we have weekly meetings, we have timelines, we have goals that we have to meet, and if we don't, then there has to be a reason. So there's always an improvement. So it's a different situation. So yes, there's been a huge financial investment, and it's ongoing, but more importantly, there's been a huge commitment by him for his personal time, which is priceless. And he's looked at it from when I very first spoke to Rolf. He said to me, you know, he's been around and spoken to a lot of it, and we were all talking about, no, we need boots on the ground. And he said, no, that's not working clearly. We need to think outside of the box. So we're now mixing technology with boots on the ground and looking at different ways of solving the problem. So he's come at it from a fresh angle, and is involved on a day-to-day basis. 3-4 times a day we speak, and it's open, and we see how we can improve and change, and that's the difference. It's not as simple as handing a check and saying good luck, I've done my bit, I feel good about what I've done. It's giving of time, and I think that's where the rest have. It's easy to hand a check because it makes yourself feel good, but when you actually have to physically get on an airplane, come here every week, give an hour of your time, 2 hours of your time, report writing, looking into what products are available, speaking to other companies from all over the world about technologies, night vision equipment, that is what's making the difference. Mm-hmm. And he fortunately has more context than we do. I'm not saying he has the time, certainly he doesn't, but he's giving the time. And I think that's why we will last longer than most. This is going to go on, because we have a thing in this country, we call it donor fatigue, where they offer so much donations, and after a while it becomes they lose interest, so to speak. They find a new interest. So that's the big difference. It's not all about the money, it's about the time, and teaching us how to run it like it is a business professionally on a day-to-day basis, and be accountable and record everything and make sure it works. That's been the difference. The biggest thing is owning the night. Owning the night. If you can see at night, we've got better control on the ground. And that comes from thermal imaging and from night vision. We're limited on the grades that we can go to. So we are not allowed to operate with top military spec However, there is equipment out there which is nearly as good as, and in the right hands with the right training, can be used as effectively. But it's finding the equipment, it's finding the people, and it's then going to those guys, which is what we've done. We did in South Africa. They came out, I spent time with them, we got some equipment on the ground, we tested it, we went back to them and said, okay guys, this is good, this doesn't work, this is breaking, this doesn't suit, go back, rethink, redesign. And the process is still going on until we get it right. So it's not like we can just go to a company that provides the military with the equipment and purchase it. We're unable to do that for many, many reasons, politics, etc., etc. But we're able to through hard work on Ralph's part and getting the right people involved with different abilities, different knowledges in cameras, etc., 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 to come together and say, we can do this, we can do that. If we attach this to this, to this, to that, wow, we've got the same result at a fraction of the price. And I think that has been the big thing. And so that's how we go. But it's only through interacting on a daily basis and speaking about what can be seen as the daily mundane things, not just talking about, oh yes, we arrested 3 people today. It's about what happened last night. What was it like? There was full moon. What was it like? There was no moon. You know, what was the weather condition like? Was it raining? Yes. How did the cameras work? How did this work? What's the situation in the vehicles? Do we need the seating? It's all those things which is, it's ongoing. It's progressive. So it's like running a company with no profit.
I think in terms of Kurt saying owning the night, I don't know if you're aware, but national parks historically doesn't operate at night. They'll set up their camps on patrol and they don't move until morning. Even if they hear gunshots within the vicinity, they won't investigate until the morning. So, yeah, that's where the huge difference will be.
But there's also a dangerous game out there. I mean, you know, in fairness to them, it's easy to criticize national parks, but, you know, there's a lot of cats, lions, leopards, but particularly a lot of lion in this area. We know a pride of 13 in this area alone, and you walk into a pride of lion at night, you know, you can be in big trouble very, very quickly. So it's you know, buffalo, yeah, or into buffalo, or into elephant, or into hippo. Yeah. Hippo kill more people in the river than crocodiles. So it is a dangerous environment. You know, so that all these things have to be taken into account. So, but the poachers now are operating at night, which is interesting, and they're doing so with success. We're not finding poachers that have been mauled to death by elephant or buffalo or killed by lion. So we need to start asking the questions: why? How? What makes them so confident to move at night without a torch? It's clearly they have the equipment. So we always need to be one step ahead and be able and to move our tactics and be open-minded. And everybody looks at it from a different angle, and eventually we come up with a plan. We work as a team. You know, it's an old saying that there's no I in team, and that's how we operate. Eh? Without that, we won't be successful. We need their support, 100%. Absolutely. Because within the African culture, the villages, the towns, they know what's going on. They know who's traveling where, what's happening, how stuff's going across the border. And we're starting to get their support. And once we win them over and they realize the benefits for them long term, not necessarily their generation, but generations going on, they will feel that they need to support it, because at the end of the day, this belongs to them, not us. This is their natural resources, which their families can benefit from through tourism long term. I think obviously there's some assistance when it comes to aid, as in with food, but you know, it's a difficult one. You can't just keep handing out food. We're starting a project where it's an arts and craft project. where we are looking at mainly the local women in the area, because a lot of them have lost their husbands through HIV, etc. They have large families to lack of birth control, but they have little means. They have no education, little means to making income. But they are not without skill, and a lot of them are very skilled at making things with their hands. So we are now in the process of now trying to get them involved, and they're very interested in making jewelry, cheap jewelry, or not nasty, not in a bad way, cheap, but stuff to encourage conservation. So it'll be save our game, keep our towns clean, which tourists will buy, and it's something to go forward, you know. So that's one of the things that we're doing with the community. We're doing a clean-up program when you're here, so all the school children will come out and pick up litter, because that's a massive problem at the moment, because the elephants are going into the towns and they're eating the food which has got plastics in it. So we're getting the schools involved. We've done a lot of work with Kolpisak, which is National Parks, a big part National Park School. So we've gone in there and we've sorted out their water issues and made sure there's running and flushing toilets and put electricity in, and actually give them all the books they need to complete the curriculum which they didn't have before. So now we're doing work with the local school. Tara, one of our team members, she's heavily involved with that as well. So yeah, it's getting them to understand the damage the litter causes. It's simple things. And so they will get a T-shirt, and then going forward, the next time we do it, we'll look at providing books or something. So many kgs of plastic they pick up from the bush. Obviously they'll be with our game rangers all the time, and protected security is foremost. But then we will then donate so much towards purchasing of books, which will assist them with education, especially books which are relevant to the environment and looking after what they've got, their natural resources. So it's a process. It's not a 2-day event, this. Yeah. I think the other thing is what people need to, poverty is rife in Africa, and the unemployment levels are high. So there's constant competition between, I need to feed myself, which is as important as anything else. And when they see an opportunity to put a wire snare, they don't see it as they could destroy an elephant. They see it of maybe they will get an impala if they're lucky, and they can feed their family on that for a month. Unfortunately, through the lack of education, they don't realize that when there's 300 snares out there, and we have picked up in excess of 300, you're now taking out a whole herd of impala. And the long-term, the run-on effect from that are serious. It's down to education.
It's also, they're pressured into thinking about only living for the day instead of for the future, providing for their family.
It's a culture, it's a hand-to-mouth culture, but that's what happens when you're struggling, when you have no money. You can only think about today, because you're only making maybe enough by selling some tomatoes in the informal sector to live for today. So it's through assistance to that, getting them into the tourism side of sector, understanding, assisting with the training, and getting them to see us as a positive thing, not a negative thing, which is starting to happen. But it is a process, and it's not something we think we can fix in a week. That would be arrogant of us. Initially there will be some negative response, because we'll be closing down businesses, game meat selling, etc. But it's not just about stopping it, it's also about trying to teach them that there is an alternative way. So we are looking at assisting with protein, assisting with the national parks to a degree, and obviously if it works, then we'll expand it. We're looking at a possible chicken growing process. There's a process that they're using in the up at Kariba, which is working extremely well, where they have basically a basket which holds 100 chickens, and right underneath it they have a fish pond where they have the fish. So they feed the chickens, and the manure from the chickens is full of nitrogen, which feeds the fish. So it's a very economical way of farming, and they can do it in this area. So we're in talks at the moment of maybe assisting with them with that. buying them day-old chicks and allowing them to farm that, which produces protein. It's far easier for them to do that than to paddle downstream for 40 kilometers all day and come back with maybe 2 small bream. And that's what they're doing on the Zambian side. It's not easy what they're doing, or having to go out and risk their lives to lay some snares. It's just showing them that there is an alternative. That's all. And making it possible for them. Absolutely 100%. Yeah, 100%. If you bear in mind that national parks between here and D Camp, which is near Mana Pools, have an average of 6 rangers out there. We alone will have in excess of 15. And once we bring in the rhino, we will increase that. That with technology, good management, securing our boundaries. The threat level will increase, there's no doubt about it. And we know this. We knew this before we got involved in this project. And we will take losses. But at the end of the day, if we don't try, then there's absolutely no chance of winning. So we have to put one foot forward. And there will be mistakes, and we will learn, and we will get there at the end of the day. But we have to get rhino on the ground. 2 things is, one is to get them back into the area, but secondly to get local support so they start to believe in what we are saying that we are doing and what our long-term goals are. So the sooner we do that, they will start to say, these guys are actually serious about it. They want to see rhino in this area just as much as we do. They're not every person out there is a poacher. Some are starving to death and they don't poach. So it's a small percentage, unfortunately. But once they see that, and when you speak to them, when you move, you'll ask. It's exciting. It'll be fantastic. It's part of the heritage that's been lost. You know, they talk. The old people you talk to them, they talk of running away from black rhino on a regular basis. They still have a passion, and they still laugh about it. And there's fabled tales and stories of all the wildlife. So it's very much an important part of their heritage. So it's important we get it.